Um, I did not count on their basketball IQ being that, but Indiana has a very, very bright future.
Yeah, I think obviously Cheryl, she's like one of the pioneer human. So for her to get to coach us, like super exciting for me. I was super excited when I heard it. It's fun. Like I called her coach and she was like, I don't know about that yet. You'll have to see how I do during the game. So
The Fever's record this season is worse than my grandma's eyesight. That's right, Christie Sides is struggling to lead this team, but there's hope. Cheryl Miller, with her championship experience, could be the spark that ignites this Fever roster. Let's talk about why. So who's the coach that's got the Fever in such hot water? Let's talk about Christie Sides, folks. You might think she's got the chops for this job, but guess what? She's looking more and more like a fish out of water. Here's the deal, Sides didn't even want to be a head coach at first. Can you believe it? She turned down the Fever job multiple times before finally saying yes. That's right, she was happy being an assistant coach. And now, well, it's showing. You'd think with all her experience as an assistant, she'd be crushing it, but nope. Sides is struggling big time, especially when it comes to handling star players. And by star players, I mean Caitlin Clark, you know, the rookie who's taking the league by storm. Let me tell you about a recent game that had fans fuming. The Fever needed a clutch play. Who do you think Sides drew it up for? Caitlin Clark, who'd already dropped 29 points? Nah, she went with Kelsey Mitchell instead. And get this, Mitchell was 0 for 8 from three-point range that night. I mean, come on, but it's not just one game. Fans are losing it over Sides lineup decisions left and right. Remember that loss to the Washington Mystics? People were not happy with her starting lineup or her play calls in crunch time. It's like she's playing chess while everyone else is playing basketball, and Sides isn't even using Clark to her full potential. Most of Clark's offensive magic, it's coming from plays that Sides didn't even draw up. Fans were quick to point out that Cheryl Miller's plays during the All-Star practice looked way better than anything Sides has come up with. Ouch! Let's be real for a second. The Fever had the worst record in the league last season, and this year they're still all over the place. No consistency, no real improvement. It's like they're stuck in a basketball Groundhog Day, and Sides is Bill Murray making the same mistakes over and over. You gotta wonder, is Sides really cut out for this head coaching gig? She's got the experience on paper, sure, but leading a team, making those big decisions when it counts, that's a whole different ballgame, and right now it looks like Sides is striking out. All right, you're probably wondering who this mystery coach is that could turn things around for the Fever. Well, get ready, because we're talking about none other than Cheryl Miller. Yeah, that Cheryl Miller, the basketball legend herself. And let's talk about Miller's coaching record. It's not just good, it's impressive. When she was with the Phoenix Mercury, she led them to a 70-52 record. That's right, more wins than losses by a long shot. And she didn't just win games, she took the Mercury all the way to the championship game in 1998. Talk about knowing how to compete at the highest level, but it's not just about the numbers. Miller is known as one of the most respected minds in women's basketball. That's not just hype, folks. It's a fact. This woman knows the game inside and out. Now, let's fast forward to the recent WNBA All-Star game. Miller was coaching, and boy, did she make waves. You know how some coaches just seem to get the best out of their players? That's Miller in a nutshell. She was drawing up plays that had everyone talking. Remember Caitlin Clark, the rookie sensation we were just talking about? Well, Miller knew exactly how to use her. She designed plays that made Clark look like a seasoned pro, not a rookie. It was like watching a master at work. And people couldn't help but compare Miller's coaching to Christie Sides. You know what they were saying? That Sides wouldn't even think of the kind of strategies Miller was using. Ouch. But it's not just about fancy plays. Miller has this knack for understanding what makes each player tick. She knows how to tap into their potential and bring out their best. Imagine what she could do with a team like the Fever, especially with a star like Caitlin Clark. You see, Miller doesn't just know the game. She gets the players. She understands the tactics, sure, but she also gets the dynamics between players. That's the kind of coach who can really shake things up and breathe new life into a team. Think about it. The Fever have been struggling, right? They've got talent, but something's not clicking. Now, imagine Miller coming in with her deep understanding of the game and her ability to connect with players. She could be just what the Fever need to turn things around, but it's not just about wins and losses. It's about building a team that works together, that brings out the best in each player, and that's where Miller really shines. She's not just a coach, she's a builder. She knows how to create a team that's more than the sum of its parts. All right, you're probably wondering what kind of magic Cheryl Miller could bring to the Fever. Well, let me tell you, it's not just about her impressive record. It's about her whole approach to the game. Let's talk about coaching philosophy for a second. Christie Sides, she's been playing it safe, sticking to old playbooks, but Miller, she's all about innovation. You know those plays she drew up for Caitlin Clark during the All-Star practice? They weren't just good, they were game-changing. Guess what? Fans couldn't help but notice the difference. They were saying things like, Sides wouldn't even think of plays like that. And you know what? They might be right, but it's not just about fancy plays. Miller's got this knack for getting the most out of her players. Remember her time with the Phoenix Mercury? She took them all the way way to the championship game in 1998. That's right, she knows how to build a winning team. And now imagine what she could do with the Fever. You've got a team that's been struggling, right? But they've got talent. They've got Caitlin Clark, for crying out loud. Miller could be just what they need to turn things around. Think about it. Miller's not just a coach, she's a basketball legend. You know what that means? Players listen to her, they respect her, and that could make all the difference when it comes to player development. But here's where it gets really interesting. Miller's reputation, it's not just good for the current players, it could help bring in new talent too. That's right, folks. We're talking about attracting top-tier players who want to learn from one of the best. You want to know the best part? Miller's not just about winning games. She's about transforming teams. She's got this way of looking at the game that could completely change how the Fever play. Remember those plays she designed for Clark? That's just the tip of the iceberg. Miller's got a whole bag of tricks that could rejuvenate the Fever's strategies. We're talking about plays that maximize each player's strengths, not just relying on one star. And let's not forget about team chemistry. Miller's got a reputation for bringing players together, creating a real team spirit. That's something the Fever could really use right now. But it's not just about what happens on the court. Miller's influence could extend way beyond game day. We're talking about a coach who could change the whole culture of the team. Think about the impact on player development. Miller's not just about making players better athletes, she's about making them better people too. That's the kind of coach who can really make a difference in a player's career. All right, folks, we've been talking about how Cheryl Miller could be a game changer for the Fever, but let's pump the brakes for a second. Firing a coach mid-season, that's not a decision you make lightly. Sure, bringing in Miller sounds great on paper, but here's the thing. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. There are some serious risks we need to talk about. First up, let's talk about team stability. You fire Sides and suddenly everything's up in the air. Players are used to her style, her plays, her way of doing things. Change that overnight, you're asking for trouble. And speaking of players, let's not forget they'd need time to adjust. We're talking about learning a whole new system here. That's not something that happens overnight. It could mean some rough games ahead while everyone gets on the same page. But here's where it gets interesting. Fans, they're not too worried about all that. You won't believe what they've been saying on social media. After that loss to the Washington Mystics, one fan went as far as saying the only person who can stop Caitlin Clark is her coach Christie Sides. Ouch. And it's not just the fans. Analysts have been weighing in too. They're saying the plays Miller drew up for Clark during the All-Star practices, way better than anything Sides has come up with. That's gotta sting. But here's the million-dollar question. Is it worth the gamble? Sure, there might be some bumps in the road at first, but think about the long-term benefits. We're talking improved player development, a fresh team strategy, the works. And get this, some analysts think the potential benefits outweigh the risks. They're saying a coaching change could bring in a fresh perspective, get the players fired up again. That's the kind of thing that could turn a whole season around. But let's be real for a second. There's no guarantee it would work. The Fever could end up worse off than before. It's a roll of the dice, folks. So what do you think? Should the Fever take the risk, fire Sides and bring in Miller, or stick with what they've got and hope things turn around? It's not an easy decision, but one thing's for sure. The Fever need to do something. They can't keep going on like this. Fans are getting restless, players are underperforming, and the losses keep piling up. Maybe a shakeup is exactly what they need. A fresh start, a new perspective, a chance to turn things around, or maybe it's too big a risk. Too much change too fast. Either way, something's gotta give. The Fever are at a crossroads, and whatever they decide could shape the future of the team for years to come. And let's talk about new talent for a second. Do you know how hard it can be to attract top players to a struggling team? Well, Miller could change all that. Her name alone could make players sit up and take notice. So what's it gonna be? Play it safe or roll the dice? Stick with Sides or gamble on Miller? The clock's ticking and the Fever needs to make a decision fast.